All right, ladies, let's be real. You've mastered the art of the boardroom. You've conquered every challenge your career has thrown at you, okay? And somehow still you find the time to hit the gym, to meal prep, and to keep your edges laid. But when it comes to relationships, let's just say the same strategies that made you a powerhouse at work aren't exactly working in your love life, all right? Welcome to the Relational Reset, the podcast that's here to help you, a high achieving woman, figure out why dating feels like a second job, but with worse benefits. I'm your host, hthompson, and together we're going to break down the patterns, the pitfalls, and yes, the delusions that might be keeping you stuck in relational burnout. So, one of the first things I kind of want to talk about here is that society has made people too nice and ineffective in getting results, okay? So, here's this. The average adult in society was raised to be more considerate of the feelings of others as opposed to their own, okay? The unfortunate part is that we get rewarded for that kind of reckless selflessness, okay? The tragic part is that we learn how to serve others before we become clear, confident, and understanding of our own needs. Now, the insidious part is that we can lose ourselves in the function of over prioritizing family, over prioritizing friends, as well as holding ourselves to outdated standards and norms to such a degree that even knowing and standing up for what is right will sometimes become severely impacted, okay? So, what happens now? As a result, we have a generation of adults moving into significant relationships that don't have a full understanding of themselves and their past traumas. Just literally brokenness and vibes, right? So, what do? We default to being nice. See, the thing is, when you don't know who you are and when you don't know what it is you want, you default to making sure that other people around you are good. I mean, the people around you are good, it can make you feel temporarily like you're okay too. But what you will find is that over time, prioritizing people doesn't help you to feel fulfilled. And that's kind of why I wanted to approach this in this particular episode, because I don't want you to just be a nice person. I want you to be the person that you need to be. Okay? So, if we think about nice people, these folks take the approach that regardless of what I need, once I can help you meet your need, I'll just figure me out at the end of the day. Does that sound like anybody? Does that sound like you? Am I talking to anybody out there? And the thing about it is we get rewarded for doing this, right? Our culture calls you just the best among us, a good Samaritan, such a great help. You get literally gassed up to think that this is a good thing I should continue doing. But that's because being nice is the safe bet, okay? So now the problem? Our value shifts away from being internally driven by purpose to being externally driven by how others feel, okay? When the bulk of your value is determined by how you make other people feel, decisions that favor your need actually starts to become the problem, right? So what happens, ladies, when you being you and your need being your need gets you in trouble, right? A car needing gas doesn't mean that the car is complaining, it's what it needs. When a person needing love says that they need love, they're not complaining, that's what their needs are, okay? So imagine that the issue now is that you're standing up for yourself. But have you ever had peace with what the problem is? What if standing up for yourself means recognizing that the problem might actually be you? Okay? Never aim to be a nice person, okay? Instead, aim to be a kind person, okay? Nice people bend the truth and omit details to spare feelings. Kind people use the truth as a guiding force to demonstrate love and care. So, nice people have a tendency to always take conflict very personally, okay? Nice people often look at conflict as a result of something they are doing wrong, okay? Sometimes, ladies, your principal is going to put you into conflict with people, and you got to learn that sometimes conflict is unavoidable. Whenever it comes to your principles, whenever it comes to your values, whenever it comes to, the kind of nails you put on or whatever it is you always be watching on TV nowadays, listen, that's you. If being you puts you into conflict with people, don't immediately move to change yourself. Take note of that. All right? So, we now want to start talking about expecting good to be rewarded with a particular outcome, right? How many times do we sit down and think, I only aim to be a good person in this world? In our prayers, we say, Lord, you know my heart. Lord, I've been fasting. I've been doing everything I'm supposed to be doing, drinking my water, getting this body together. But yet still, everybody knows someone who isn't doing the work and seemingly getting the benefits of work. And then we also know people who are doing the work, who are disciplined and dedicated, and they don't have anything to show for it, right? So I think everybody is familiar with the Bible verse, Matthew 7, verses 12. And that verse says, "So in everything do unto others what you would have them do unto you. For this sums up the law and prophets." We all know this, okay? But catch this. This Bible verse was never intended to be a law of causality, but rather it was supposed to be a reflection of godly character, okay? So that means, ladies, when you do unto others, you ain't doing that to get something back from people, okay? Stop helping people just to kind of fill your ego. Stop helping people to kind of just get what it is you need to get back for manipulation's sakes. I ain't saying y'all let's manipulate, but what I am saying is that sometimes we place an unknown expectation on doing good. That's unhealthy, all right? An over-spiritualization of relationships has caused us to think that this was some kind of insurance policy for not getting hurt in relationships because you never did anything to hurt other people, right? You know what it is when you're staying in your lane, right? And you're minding your own business, you're doing you, and then for some reason, people are still making you the problem. When it's like, I haven't said anything to y'all. Y'all don't know me from a can of paint, right? You know what it is, you walk into a building and people don't know you, but you're already getting vibes. You're kind of already experiencing this tension, this energy. And many times that simply happens because we are expecting a reward. We're expecting some kind of return on this good thing that we've been doing our whole lives. So I know a lot of good women that try to, out of love, maybe override their bad choices. Okay? But ladies, I'm here to tell you this. And I'm holding your hand when I'm telling you this, ladies. You cannot outlove your bad choice in men. Okay? We got to make sure that we understand this. Whenever you think that you can just make that man better by loving him, whenever you think that you can change that man by just doing something you don't normally do, you're compromised. You're compromised because now you don't know what you should and should not be doing. You're compromised because now success is based on whether that man receives you fully or not. And I'm not saying you need to lie to people. I'm not saying you need to overly modify yourself. But sometimes we try to outlove our bad decisions. The wrong man will always be the wrong man, regardless of what it is you do for him. Okay? So let me explain what this is. This is the byproduct of doing good without the checks and balances of healthy boundaries. Okay? A lot of y'all have heart. A lot of y'all have desire, but what a lot of y'all don't have is boundaries. And guess what? You'll be surprised to know that you need more boundaries to protect you from yourself than you need to protect you from other people. Right? Like I know personally speaking for me, I kind of need a boundary to stop me from overgiving. I'm that kind of person, once you kind of start explaining to me what a need is, I just give. I'm one of those people, if I'm not careful, I will give you the shirt off of my back, and that's not always good. See how cold it is beginning in February and now it's March? Like, I can't be doing that all the time, right? But why is it that we constantly have to ignore our own needs to be seen as a good person in this country? Let's think about that, right? Why is it that I constantly have to minimize myself to prioritize other people as the good thing to be doing? What if I told you, ladies, that maybe you're not necessarily the one designated to always help other people? Like sometimes things come to you, but you need to have the responsibility to recognize how to reject those requests, okay? If I can't give that guy on the street money, then it means someone else after me will. We have to stop thinking that everybody's story starts and begins and ends with us, when really we're just playing a part in helping them, okay? So, ultimately, what am I saying here, Arison? What are we saying? Getting caught up in doing good for people without boundaries is emotional and relational suicide, okay? As long as takers are taking, they will take. You can't wait for the world to become a better place before you stop giving, before takers stop doing certain things. Okay? You have to start waking up and recognizing that the world we're living in, it's a real world out here. Okay? So ladies, let's now move into something else. Let's talk about loving potential. I know a lot of y'all just love potential, boy. Like, I thought I had potential for abs, and life is showing me ever so humbly I may not get abs. I think the last time I had abs is when I was maybe 6 months. No, I was 1 year old. That's the last time I had visible abs, but I ain't seen it since. Never allow the pull of your heart to supersede your boundaries because it can warp your expectations of people and your relationship. Okay? Potential is good, mind you, but it's not always the right thing to base long-term relational decisions on. Okay? In fact, loving potential is a form of settling. I said it, right? Sometimes we don't even realize that we are ignoring the person for who they are, and we're moving too quickly into what they could be. If you caught last episode, you would understand that we talked a lot about this, right? So make sure to go back and watch it if you haven't. But settling is when you present someone with a standard. They fail to meet it, but you pass them anyway because you like them. Ladies, y'all understand this? Y'all gotta stop passing people just because they look good, right? Plenty of these fellas out here making money, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're meeting the standard, okay? And just because he's handsome, just because he's tall, just because he's half Christian, half hood, just because he got a nice car, just because he's tough and sensitive at the same time, these men don't exist, by the way. Stop compromising on the standard just because you like people, okay? Stop promoting people in life and in business just because they are your friend. Government. So we got to stop giving people passing grades that only have the potential to be better, okay? Loving a person into seeing their potential can quickly become codependence because you are now their source of perspective and happiness. Imagine a situation where you now are in charge of another person's development. I'm a father. My daughter's now 5 years old. Me and my wife are in charge of her development right now. But eventually, we're going to have to give that back to her. Over time, we're starting to show her, how can you be more responsible? How can you communicate a little bit better? It's fine when you're dealing with kids. But as adults, ladies, what you doing trying to raise that boy into being a man? Right? That is not your duty. Your duty is to be a partner, and you can't be a partner to someone that is not being accountable to their own growth in their own lives. But see, these are the things that we miss when we fall in love with potential. Okay? Now, I understand. This can be a challenge for professional women because many women end up falling in love with versions of men that only exist in their head. You all hear me? These men that you are falling in love with, ladies, they're not out here with us. Show me where he is. Is he here? I don't know. I've been doing therapy now for over 10 years. I have yet to find a unicorn. I hear plenty times that these unicorn exists. Maybe they exist in Andros. I don't know. Maybe they exist in Ragged Island. I don't know. Y'all, if you got some people to go out there and let me know, just I'm willing. But here's what happens when you fall in love with that version of this man that only exists in your head. Number one, you mistake lust for love. Okay? How many times have you met a man that was so charismatic? He had so much good energy. Immediately, it was Monday when we met. And like by Tuesday, Wednesday, I mean, you're already doing the horizontal hokey pokey. Like, what's going on with this? So that's number one. Okay? Number two, mistaking obsession for care. All right? Someone was telling me a story one time. Harrison, I finally found the love of my life. And I mean, let me tell you, he doesn't let me go anywhere by myself. From the minute I wake up in the morning, he's texting me, hey, what you got going on? Where you at? Where you going? I just tried to FaceTime you. I just tried to check your location and it's saying you can't be found. Oh, Harrison, I've never been loved like this, right? And I kind of scratch my head as a therapist and it's like, I don't want to break it to you, but This ain't love. This sounds like obsession, right? And unfortunately, we seem to wait until there's a problem in our relationships to finally start correcting it. Like nobody looks at the fire hazards. Everybody only wants to respond to the fire. But it's like if you can't learn to see that pile of leaves as being an issue, that means you always need a fire to figure out what's going wrong in your life. Don't wait for that, ladies. Let's be accountable, okay? Now, this last one is probably the most powerful concept of all of the three. But when you fall in love with potential, when you fall in love with that version of that man in your mind, you end up suffering in silence and calling it patience. All right? When you suffer in silence and you call it patience, you now don't know what you should and should not be waiting on. How many times, ladies, have you said to yourselves that, Harrison, I don't know if this is an indicator that I should go, or I don't know if this is an indicator that I should stay, right? How many times do we pray to God, right? And it's like, God, like, give me a sign, Dread. Like, should I be dealing with this? This is uncomfortable. Do you want me to work through this? Like, is this a test or is this a sign? And I feel like a lot of times professional women struggle figuring out the differences between the two. So this is why I'm so strong on seeing people for who they are, okay? I don't want you to just see what they could be, but I need you to see who they are because that's where the relationship is, all right? So let's talk a little bit about potential and limiting beliefs, okay? The average person does not see who they are today. They see who they are trying to be, all right? This sounds like Bohemians to me. I don't know. It seems like anytime you start asking a Bohemian person, tell me a little bit about what you got going on in your life, they're always projecting a version of themselves that they have yet to fully be. It's like, I'm trying to be better. I'm trying to be more patient. Harrison, are you trying to stop cussing? Like, I'm trying to stop needing a chocolate after I finish my dinner, right? It's like we're trying to be that. But you got to be able to look in the mirror of who you are today if you say you're interested in change and success, okay? So when all you focus on is the version of yourself you're aiming to be, you end up limiting the success you can actually be experiencing in your relationship, okay? When you cannot see yourself in truth because you are too busy seeing what you think you are, you become unable to see the things you truly need, okay? If I ignore my sleep, how am I supposed to know to seek rest, right? If I ignore my thirst, how am I supposed to know to seek water? In the same way, if you ignore the things that are showing up in your life, how are you supposed to know to seek help? Plenty of y'all watching this right now, y'all think about therapy, right? Stop thinking and book, okay? Call, WhatsApp, send me a DM, do what you gotta do. We have to stop waiting on things to be different before we start changing ourselves, okay? So, if I can't see it or feel it, this is called disqualification. Disqualification happens when you've gotten so good at numbing your feelings, you now don't know how to respond to what you should be responding to, right? I think everybody around us has, at some point in time, had to deal with a headache, right? It's like you had to get up when your head was hurting. You kind of had to show up for work and work with people you don't want to work with, right? So we know what it is to tolerate the uncomfortable. But sometimes I think we get too comfortable ignoring our needs and we don't know how to get back to it, okay? So this is exactly how dating can become problematic because now we're adding other people into the mix when we don't fully know ourselves, right? Why begin involving yourself with a man, ladies, and you don't know where you are with yourself? You haven't yet mastered your own happiness. You haven't yet mastered your own peace, but yet you still focusing on wanting a baby? Like, sis, you serious right now? Like, you barely struggling to get up on time and to meet your own personal needs, and you now want a little human being to take care of when you haven't even mastered yourself? To me, that just seems like we're asking for problems, you know? But I'm just a therapist. I ain't too sure if I know what I'm talking about, you know? So we can't continue to blame the dating pool. We can't continue to blame our parents. We can't continue to blame the past. We have to be honest, okay? So I think what happens now is we need to begin defining what is dating, okay? Now that we understand where we need to be, Now that we've begun understanding what's going on with ourselves and the value of being locked into reality, we can now talk about what dating actually is, okay? So here's how I define it. Dating is the process of observing someone's nature to determine a readiness for commitment, okay? Dating is not the time or place where you're trying too hard to make things work, all right? A lot of women come to me and it seems like they're giving wife energy to boyfriends. It seems like they're giving long-term energy to a 2-month-old situation. If your first gift out the gate is a diamond necklace, where are you supposed to go from there, right? Rocket trip? Buying people planets? Like, sometimes I really understand, I really want to know if we understand the fullness of what it is we do to get the results we say we want. So, when you're dating, you are observing what is and isn't working, and then you're making a decision based on that observation, okay? You're not looking at the potential for change. You're looking at the reality of what is happening and what isn't happening, okay? Think about it kind of like when you're buying a used car. You're looking and you're asking certain questions, right? Like, how does she run? Is there any issues that this car has? Is the oil working fine? Does the car windows go down? What's going to happen when it's sitting in traffic for more than 20 minutes? Because you know it's a used car, you kind of know how to pull information out of that seller so you can fully understand what you're getting into. The only kind of vehicle that's not going to give you a problem is a vehicle straight off the lot. But unfortunately, every human being by the time they are 15 years old is a used vehicle. Okay? We've been through pain. We've lost loved ones. We've tried and failed. We were told that we couldn't be things. Like, we're not always our best self just because we're ready for relationship. And the goal is just to make sure that we understand the personal work we have to begin doing before we start that process, okay? So, this is why you have to date often. And this is why you have to date intentionally. Because sometimes you don't see everything you need to see in one sitting. Like, one of the biggest challenges I've seen happening with professional women, y'all only date in certain environments, right? Like, I know a lot of professional women right now, off the top of my head, the only men they're going to attempt to date is the men in the gym. And so my thing is, what kind of presentation are men giving you in the gym? When all you're dating is gym goers, then you're only seeing them in a certain light. But what about the men in your church? What about the men in your circles? What about the men that you encounter in your life from simply walking more into your purpose and potential? I feel like many times we limit ourselves simply because we are afraid to branch out into other unknown unfamiliar spaces, sorry. When you are afraid to branch out into unfamiliar space, you start limiting yourself to what's safe to you. And when you limit yourself to what's safe to you, I'm sorry, but it's just a matter of time before you start encountering problems. Like, I know I said earlier, ladies, right? Like, we talking about dating men in the church. But sometimes the biggest devils are sitting right there in the pew with you. You know, in the past they say turn to your neighbor, right? And sometimes you turn to your neighbor. That might be a demon. I'm just saying, right? So church is no longer just a safe space because it's church, right? And you need to be cognizant of that. Good men are everywhere, okay? Good men are standing in line at the food store. Good men are at the gas station. Good men are working out. Sometimes good men are in church. But good men are not just located in any one singular place, okay? Good men are all around you. But ladies, if you do not learn to manage your space and your energy, you're going to start expecting yourself to find good men in a place where they don't necessarily exist, okay? So what this episode really was designed for is to wake professional women up. I wanted to show y'all sometimes that we don't often understand fully what it is to date, and I get it. In our Bohemian society, the minute you're spotted with a person more than once or twice, you're now considered in a relationship, right? But dating is what you have to make sure you're mastering. Date multiple people. This one at a time thing, this Harris and I could only deal with one person, that might be limiting you in getting the results you're looking for. Sometimes people will make judgments. I get it. Sometimes people are going to make comments. I get it. But you are the only one who has to live your life. I can't live it for you. So are you going to continue to prioritize what people are saying? Are you going to continue to prioritize what people are feeling? Or are you going to reconcile yourself to saying there will always be people that have something to say about what I'm doing? And finally start doing what it is you need to be doing for yourself. So ladies, what I'm hoping you've gained from this episode is nothing more than hard love, okay? I know sometimes we don't like to hear these things, but I want y'all to feel comforted in knowing that when Harrison helps, when Harrison is speaking, I'm doing so because I want you to be a better version of yourself, all right? And that's a wrap on this episode of the Relational Reset. I hope you got some real gems to take with you on this journey to thriving in love. Remember, relationships aren't about winning, okay? They're about experiencing growth. They're about enjoying the process. And I want you to see that if you found today's episode helpful, or if it called you out just a little bit, do me a favor and subscribe, okay? Leave a review, share it with that friend or even that family member who needs to hear this, okay? Let's keep this conversation going. You can follow me if you want on socials at ht4real, or you can visit my website at harrisonhelps.com for more insights, laughs, and the occasional tough love, okay? Don't forget to use the hashtag HarrisonHelps when sharing your thoughts, okay? Because I want to hear from you. So until next time, keep showing up, keep growing, and most importantly, enjoy the ride. I'll catch you on the next episode.